Today I want to begin this story, this conversation again from an issue, from a matter of greatest concern for India, which India has resolved. But the international community, anti India forces, are still working very hard on one connection or the other to make India a big violator of human rights. And I'm today bringing up the issue of Kashmir because this issue is going to be talked about for quite some time. Believe me when I say this, that the enemies of India are geared to make this a global issue, and we have to be very vigilant about it. Something happened very recently on February 5th. Uh, it was that a New York State Assembly and the Governor Cuomo issued a proclamation or a declaration of Kashmir Day. Now, I do not know how many of you have seen or read that entire declaration. I did, because my guest today, Mr. Rakesh Kaul, who has been on this show a couple of times, and an ardent and a very involved person who has seen the atrocity and genocide in Kashmir first-hand basis, and he has shared those thoughts with all of us several times. He was the one who brought this resolution to my attention, and I read that. My first reaction was, there is no mention of Kashmiri Pandits in it. So how can you have a resolution on human rights and culture of Kashmir without mentioning Kashmiri Pandits who have been violated, to use a mild word, compared to genocide, which actually went through there? And there's no mention of Kashmiri Pandit. So it tickled my mind, it upset me, it angered me, it frustrated me that our New York State, where we live, where majority, a whole lot of Indians live here, and they are mostly democratic people, Democratic Party supporters. How come nobody knew about this coming? That was my biggest frustration. Where are the stalwarts of Democratic Party who live around this place in the tri-state area or Massachusetts who did not know about this resolution, this declaration, this proclamation coming? So to discuss this issue and many issues on which India has been attacked in the recent past or has been continuously under attack for a while, I have the great pleasure of welcoming Mr. Rakesh Kaul, whom the audience knows, an author, an engineer, an entrepreneur, involved deeply in cultural elements of India, and a Kashmiri Pandit. He is going to talk about this particular item, which we Indians must take very serious cognizance of. This is not something to be ignored. It's not a Kashmir issue, it's India issue. It's not a Kashmiri Pandit issue. They suffered, but it involves all of us. Let's bear in mind that those who oppose us are remarkably organized. They are very vicious. They know what they are trying to do. My, my appeal to all of us is, let's take this as an example to address the issues, and let's get politically engaged with the American society. Because if we do not get politically engaged, if we are not involved, then things will happen and we can only cry later. Reacting later is not a solution to the problem. A resolution is passed, it's passed. You can keep crying all time long, but the educated interest that we have in it is that people must prevent this from happening in future. So Rakeshji, welcome to the show. And let's take us through this entire proclamation that came about, and why are you so angry about it, and legitimately so. Please share with the audience that why the Kashmir issue will remain burning until we resolve it and put our foot on it, that this far and no further. So we have to kind of become very anxiously aware and very strongly participant in the whole process. Rakeshji, please tell us more about it. And also the significance of date February 5th. That's important for all Indians to know, which I'm 100% sure that majority of us are not even aware of. Rakeshji, please.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji, for having me here. I too was taken aback when somebody told me that New York State was passing some resolution sponsored by some
थोड़ा ऊपर
American,
आ जाएंगे, थोड़ा ऊपर, हाँ, this is better.
some
Much better.
American Pakistani advocacy group. And my first thought was, oh, good, they're going to pass some resolution about this abominable action that Pakistan generally and its Supreme Court specifically has taken in releasing the murderer of Daniel Pearl. Because for Americans, that should be the first and most important human rights justice issue. But no, it wasn't that. It was actually something called American Kashmir Day. And it was February 5th. That day was the day that was picked. And I have to say that these well-meaning legislators have walked in where angels fear to tread. Because what is the significance of this date? Vibhuti ji, the plan was this. January 19, 1990 was Genocide Day of Kashmiri Pandits, their ethnic cleansing. January 26, which is India's Republic Day, the plan was that there would be a 1 million man march to seize control of all of the offices, the radio station in the valley. This would be a march led by the terrorist organization, people coming in from the city, from the rural villages and across the border. 1 million man march to declare independence of Kashmir. Well, genocide succeeded, but because of a vigilant governor, Governor Jagmohan, the January 2016 failed. And so on February 5, 1990, the leading party in Pakistan, Jamaat-e-Islami, their chief, Qazi Hussain Ahmad, he was the first person to say that February 5th would be this Kashmir Day. But he didn't call it Kashmir Day, he called it Jihad Day. And that was the day that they started a global fundraising effort to launch jihad in Kashmir. This report was provided to America by the Washington Post on 18 February 1990. Of course, the Washington Post at that time translated the word jihad into something euphemistically called the Holy War Fundraising Campaign. So that's what this February 5th day is. It's a day for launching jihad and fundraising for jihad. So now that we have established the significance of this date, which was actually endorsed subsequently by Nawaz Sharif, who gained power with the help of Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, before we move on to the resolution, I do want to point out that this Jamaat is banned in many countries, certainly in India, but its most lethal arm was the Hizbul Mujahideen. And Hizbul Mujahideen has been banned even by the United States. So these respected legislators obviously were not informed about this, because if they were, I'm sure they would have thought twice as Americans about wanting to get associated with something like this. Now, let us go through the 5 key points in this resolution. The first one commends the Kashmiri community for overcoming adversity and becoming pillars of New York State. I call them the pillars of Kashmiri community in New York State. They're publicly known. Nobody knew about this resolution. Nobody had talked to them, and they hadn't heard about it. Democracy is about dialogue. Democracy is not about operating by stealth. Nobody had approached them. Nobody had sought their opinion on this resolution. It was clearly the handiwork of a backroom deal done in retrospect with very shady characters, which I think these legislators over time need to be educated about. The second sentence of the resolution starts off by saying Kashmiri people speak kosher, the language of the Kashmiri people. Well, here's the interesting thing. This American Pakistan advocacy group did not care to mention that Kashmir is not an official language of Pakistan. Kashmir is an official language of India, but Pakistani proxies made sure that the state of Jammu and Kashmir did not have Kashmiri or kosher as its official language. They made Urdu as the official language to be simpatico with Pakistan. And then it was slowly transitioned into Arabic. Credit goes to Prime Minister Modi, who in September last year decreed that Kashmiri language should be made the official language of the state. So when New York State salutes the Kashmiri people for speaking Kashmiri, they could have perhaps thanked Prime Minister Modi for being the first person to give official status to this language, a status that is lacking in Pakistan from where these sponsors come from. The third point self-pats New York State for being a champion of human rights. You have already noted that, sadly, it's in Kashmir that modern-day genocide was committed on 400,000 people who had to flee right away. I want to give some perspective to Americans who watch this show, especially these legislators. Everybody knows about the genocide of the Tibetan people. Only 100,000 Tibetan people fled with the Dalai Lama. And there are still the bulk of Tibetans in Tibet. When it comes to Kashmiri Pandits, 400,000 fled, and nothing was left of our civilization. Legislators didn't mention that. They talked about progress in social justice. American Pakistani advocacy group did not educate these legislators that there is no social justice in Gilgit-Baltistan. And when it comes to progress, the per capita income in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is 1/7 that of Indian side of Kashmir. After all, one has to be fair and balanced. If one is saying I'm a champion of social justice, one has to speak the truth. And then lastly, it talks about sponsoring Kashmiri cultural identity. What can you sponsor Kashmiri cultural identity when the people who sponsored this resolution and came to you are the same people whose proxies shut down the movie theaters in Kashmir Valley, said that anybody caught playing music and dance would be shot dead, shut down the arts? This is the company you're keeping, and you're saying that you will promote Kashmiri cultural identity. So Vibhuti ji, as we educate these legislators, as we raise their awareness, I hope that the embarrassment that comes out of it will be its own karma. But the legislators have to understand what they have done. See, at the end of the day, any politician has to play vote bank politics too. The number of Indians in New York State is 4 times or greater than that of the Pakistanis. So if you're going to do something that offends Indians, at least first talk to them, find out, so that you don't make an enemy for no reason. The trade specifically between New York State and India runs in the multi-billions of dollars. And you can see that India now is becoming very aware. You can see the decisive action India took on the commercial front when its borders were impinged upon by a neighbor. There was swift retribution. There was swift retribution against Malaysia when the prime minister spoke out of school and their complete palm oil industry came down on its knees. So they say, don't wound the tiger. And I think they have wounded the tiger here. So let me stop, because my goal was to give a quick overview of this massive self-goal that these small group of New York legislators have scored, unfortunately, besmirching the name of New York State, because people think just, okay, New York State did this. They don't know the people behind it. And it'll take some time and some engagement with the Indian community for them to figure out what is the course correction that's needed here.
Rakeshji, you have definitely very, very clearly stated how the New York State legislature, the sponsors of the bill, did this. Obviously, there was something or somebody persuading them very strongly to do this. But certainly, this didn't happen overnight. It must have taken. It couldn't have been done so confidentially that nobody was aware that this particular thing was coming on February 5th, right? The recognition of Kashmir Day. So as I always say, we both belong to the corporate world. And as corporate leaders of our businesses and enterprise, we always seek solution, and we spend time in trying to figure out to have our pulse on our fingers on the pulse of the enterprise that we run. So let's look at it from a corporate angle. So I'm 100% sure that while the Americans are very trusting and they played the vote bank politics of the Muslim vote bank, and I don't blame them for playing the vote bank politics, but though we know it is a wrong thing to do. But that's the compulsion of democracy that goes on and on. But important part is that recognizing where did we miss out. So for example, there is a strong Kashmiri group, international as well as United States, right here in New York and New Jersey. How come we did not know about it? How come we did not participate in the deliberations? Eventually, when the bill was to be passed, there were some organizations that protested against this. One of them, I must name that young group of people, Coalition of Hindus of North America, CONA, as they call it. And they made a protest about it, and the bill was stalled. The entire, some of the bill was stalled in the assembly. Likewise, why nobody participated in this part of this? CONA stopped the swastik bill, if you remember that part of it. But this part of it as well, I'm relating both the things because in one place, one entity was able to stall the bill. It is stalled right now. It's as evil as this is. I do not know which one is more evil. But this one is very important. That how come we did not know about it? Are we participating in the political life of America? Are we engaged in the political system of America? Or are we just happy being successful, professionals in the country, most loved and most admired, with high per capita income, but least involved in the political process? Because New York State has significant chunk of Indian population lives in New York State, New York City and Long Island and various places, and you are in the neighboring class. So we are virtually a tri-state. It's known for a particular reason. How come nobody knew about it? And suddenly when the Kashmir Days declaration is made, we are now knowing about it. So how we can't definitely take it back now, but what kind of pressure, what kind of engagement that we need to have with the government? Can we reach Mr. Cuomo and tell him to pull this back? Because this is grossly unfair to the very entities of Kashmir who needed support instead of they have been abandoned. That's my point, which I'm trying to say. So, what is the solution to the whole thing? I mean, this has happened. I'm 100% sure something else will happen, like the swastik bill that was put in the assembly to declare swastik symbol, which is so holy to us, to be taught in school from 6th grade to 12th grade as a hate symbol. Now, we know that it was Hakenkreuz or whatever the German pronunciation is. That symbol is not anywhere close to the swastik, which is relevant for us Hindus as part of our spiritual and religious life. So how will Indian children feel when they read about these things? What do we need to do as adult, grown-up, first-generation Indians to make ourselves seen, heard, and felt beyond collection of campaign money?
Yeah, so I think that you sort of given elements of the answer to your own question. I will say the best way to understand your own strengths and weaknesses is to look through the eyes of your enemy, because your enemy is analyzing you
Right.
more intently than you are. So in 1947, when Jinnah sent his tribal raiders and army into Kashmir to fight India, somebody asked him and said, "Do you think the Indians might win this?" And he laughed and he said, "No, the Hindu is a shopkeeper." And he used the Indian word for a shopkeeper. He's only worried about his taka, about his penny. Our Pathans will finish them off. So his assessment has really not changed, that whether one likes it, doesn't like it, Indians in general, Hindus in particular, we are seeking to pursue the good life for ourselves, for our family, for our world around us. And others are not. Others are trying to pursue political power. Once they get political power, then they seek subjugation and colonization and conversion. So now what we have to recognize that we are facing that challenge. The weapons, the tools may have become more sophisticated, but the opposition is playing the same game to illegally grab political power and then seek subjugation and conversion. And you can see even in this exercise, even though they talk about human rights and all that and democratic ideals and free speech, this was just a midnight special hatchet job, right? They never cared. They never cared to consult their own constituency, which Indians outnumber Pakistanis 4 times to 1, right? So I think that the only answer is that political consciousness has to grow. And that political consciousness has to grow around the core idea that we are the holders of truth. And we have to become warriors of truth. And to become a warrior of truth, we have to aggressively go to these legislators and say, Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism. Pakistan is guilty of committing genocide against the Kashmiri Pandits. They are a pariah nation. They have done nothing good for America. By contrast, as recently as today, or was it yesterday, the State Department emphatically used the words Indian Jammu and Kashmir. And they went on to say there's no change in policy. So these legislators need to align themselves with their own government, their own policy, and not play with fire. They are playing with fire here. It's not good for New York. It's not good for America, what they have done here. But we Indians have to now become more vigilant. We have to become more politically engaged. We have to open super PACs. We have to play the game the Americans played.
That's very well said. I mean, I totally agree with you. I have been talking about this for a very long time, and I will keep talking about it. That one of the best ways to make sure that you are not at the receiving end of the democratic process or living a life in America is to make yourself relevant in the communities that we live in. Otherwise, suddenly we will find that we are marginalized. Nobody cares. And that's an important part. So if you are aware of, ever since the Kashmir Day was, this proclamation was announced, February 5th was chosen as that day, which is a heinous day, if you ask me.
Jihad Day. We should refer to it as Jihad Day because
Jihad Day, exactly.
That's how the guy who launched it
Right.
intended it to be.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So has anyone from the Kashmiri community or the Indian community even lodged a protest with the New York State Assemblyman, the four sponsors of the bill? I'm going to send this program, our conversation, to those four congressmen, the assemblymen of New York State, telling them that, look, this is what you are doing, you are not even aware of. You were taken for a ride by whoever was persuading you to do this. I mean,
taken for a ride.
So that's what I'm trying to say. Has there been any uproar? Has there been any protest? Has there been any condemnation of this declaration of Kashmir? Who needs it? I'm 100% sure that not one Indian, not one Kashmiri Pandit, other than those who are anti-India, anti-Modi, those people we know, has supported this agenda. We don't want this Kashmir Day. We don't want that proclamation. Have we made a protest about it or not?
I'm led to believe that that is in the works and that will happen. But I think if you take the first step and send this video and tell these legislators and at least their staff members, just watch it so that you can educate yourself to what doodah you have stepped into.
Correct.
I mean,
this is a matter of shame for them.
It's a matter of shame. You have passed a resolution basically honoring Jihad Day. I mean, good Lord.
Right.
Good Lord.
This is absolutely abysmal. And that's what that brings me to another aspect of the whole conversation is that we are witnessing right now. You used the word toolkit earlier on, and I wanted to talk about how the toolkits are being prepared globally to malign India. Even a school-going girl who is a climate change warrior, and let's give her credit for that part of it, good, bad, or ugly, right or wrong. I'm not here to sit on judgment on that. But even that girl was talking about organizing and facilitating, inciting riots in India. Her action was inciting riots in India on January 26th, our Republic Day, which was the day on which the Kashmiris were going to march 1 million people. These are not sporadic incidents. This is a well-knit plan to shake the Republic of India in a manner that we are not even able to comprehend. We don't even think it is going to happen. So the point here is, again, the toolkit, in her childishness or whatever, it became public knowledge. Now we know that the entire farmers' agitation was sponsored, paid for, and all the cry about poor farmers are dying was one big hogwash to put anything else in this product. There may be some. I mean, I'm not saying that farmers' grievance they can't protest, but I'm saying that they can't let the hijackers take the thing away. It's like hijacking of the Indian Airlines plane to Kandahar, you know, to force a particular set of course of action. That's the point which I'm trying to say, that when our enemy is so determined, I mean, I don't have a negative word to determine, so I'm not saying that. He's so cunningly plotting your demise. What are we doing? And that's something which I have been crying hoarse on my programs, that Indians need to organize, get engaged, get involved, demand, and make sure that these kind of things don't happen again. So what do you think about this toolkit business? And the name of George Soros is splattered around all the time. I don't know if that man is involved. Recently, Shashi Tharoor came and met with him, and God knows what training he got and what support he got for the next launch of another round of attacks on India. But India is under attack. Modi is the last bastion of, who has created an awareness and pride for having settled Kashmir issue legally, legitimately. What was a temporary measure has been removed altogether. So the point is, I'm very concerned about one thing, that when your enemy uses your tools to defeat you or hit you, what do? Where do you draw the Lakshman Rekha in it?
So, as far as this farm issue is concerned, the government has initiated some reforms. There has been some resistance in a local isolated area on the part of a small group, and there'll be reconciliation. So, I fundamentally am not concerned about this issue. It'll die out. But as you said, what has it revealed? And the first thing it has revealed is what Shakespeare said: "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive." Poor Greta, who I think the world does respect her, as you said, for championing climate change. Young Greta, in trying to dig a grave for India, she unfortunately fell herself into it.
Right.
And I think her credibility has been shattered. I don't think it'll ever be the same again. And so that's... Now, you see, truth matters. And what is the truth here? The truth here is this. From a human rights point of view, it was India's shining hour. Just imagine a violent mob descends into the capital with swords and tractors and other weapons. 400 policemen get injured, some beaten to near death. Not one protester was hurt. I don't know any society in the world that can express its human rights to a greater degree than what India did in permitting them.
Right.
So let's set the record straight. There is no place on earth that gives a space for human rights than India does. That's the fact. Now, to the degree some fashionistas, tweet something or the other, we shouldn't take them seriously because they're entertainers. And that's where their role stops. If for a minute they see themselves as something different, you know what? They're going to have a fall as Greta did. And India will continue to be stronger and better. And you just see, even as we speak today, China has agreed to withdraw its troops. Just look at that. Look at that. We call their bluff. Modi called their bluff. The Indian army called their bluff. They're going to withdraw 20 kilometers. So this is a nation that is a rising power. This is a people that, Vibhuti, every Indian, the very cockles of our heart get warmed when we see that message, gift from the people of India, and carrying our gift of life-saving vaccines all over the world, across the oceans, across the continents, and the heartfelt gratitude of the leaders of this country, including Prime Minister Trudeau calling Modi. I would say to your viewers, keep your eyes on that. These entertainers, they are like soap bubbles. They last for a minute and then they disappear. But India is on the march ahead, and this is a beautiful India. It's an India that's a Vishwa Guru to humanity. It's an India that's a lifesaver to humanity. And it's Indians. It's you, me, 1.3 billion Indians that are coming together to make it happen.
That's the story. You are absolutely right. For example, much before Trudeau, I don't know how reluctantly he must have requested Mr. Modi to send the vaccines, and he was dancing along with the Khalistanis in Canada and supporting them. That's another part, which is supporting them. Brazil's president paid handsome tributes, and today only I saw a video of a country of 70,000 population, Trinidad. The president of that country said, I never thought that Prime Minister Modi would take a tiny country like us so seriously. And he has given that. So Mr. Modi has done an exemplary job in terms of what we corporate people would say in the brand image of India and his own brand. So these tidbits entertainers will not be able to hurt him anyway, because nations, leaders want to be like Modi, if I may say so. They want to be as popular as he is, the way he has commanded the respect of Indians, apart from what we in Jaipur dialogues call the Panchamakkars. Have you heard about that? So, those Panchamakkars, for the benefit of the audience here, the Panchamakkars, what we call in Jaipur dialogue was coined the phrase, are the people who oppose Modi tooth and nail, are the Marxist, the missionaries, the Maulanas, the media, and Macaulay's children. Those who live in Luty and Delhi and who have been rattled. And Prime Minister Modi has done an exemplary job of the branding part of it. In leadership language, he created the alliances around, whether it was visiting Mongolia or going to Israel or going to Brazil or countries where nobody had gone before. The people at that time his detractors may have called him NRI Prime Minister. But today we reap the rewards, both with reference to the foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investment that are going to India. For the first time, not for the first time, in his speech in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, he respectfully made reference to private sector with respect. That was a very powerful thing to do. Whereas in India, it was known, businessman chor hai. That is the way the socialists began to call Indian businessmen and leadership. The point which I'm trying to make is that Prime Minister has done an exemplary job. We have to remember, continue to do our good part. That's absolutely true. At the same time, we can't ignore the evil mongers. That's the important part, because we are definitely fighting the perception battle, and perception turns into reality. Those are lies, and lies. So the question that comes about is that how the detractors of India, the India haters, are mobilizing resources to malign India. And that's where our role comes in, to protect our country, protect ourselves in this country. We can't be branded as if we are Hindutva marauders. No, we are not.
So I would say respectfully, we have to organize, we have to engage, We can't vacate this field that you have said is right. It's a Kurukshetra, it's a battlefield. But we have to fight it with our weapons. And that's the only thing I would submit. We're not playing this tired game of human rights. We're playing the game at a much higher level. We're playing the game of human life. For the last 1 year, Indians all over the world have been on the front line, laying down their lives as doctors, as nurses, as medical practitioners, saving humanity. In America, in United Kingdom, in Europe, Indian doctors, when India had its own COVID crisis, it still flew a medical team to UAE. We're sending vaccines. These legislators need to understand what is the company they want to keep? People who are life saviors or people who are terrorists and genociders? And this messaging, I think now has to be made sharper, more pointed, so that we define with pride the identity of what an Indian is today in this century. And they need to understand the Trevors, the Gretas, the Rihannas. Hey, if not you, your Hollywood friend, his was probably taken care of by Indian doctor. I know the Indian doctors in Hollywood. I know the cardiologists to the stars in Hollywood. He's an Indian. It's the same people.
Right.
Trevor. So don't badmouth people who are good people. And as our identity gets stronger, as our messaging gets stronger, as our engagement gets stronger, we'll triumph here also. The elephant is slow to react, but when it reacts, and
then the herd moves.
The earth shakes.
This is a very
then the earth shakes.
Yeah, you raised a very, very good point that we have to define our own narrative. We have to define our course of action. And our course of action is something that needs to be made aware of. Just as once upon a time, I think I've shared with you, I've shared with the audience, I'll repeat, that Indians are, as a senator once told me, that we love you Indians as the immigrants to this country. You are professionals, you are hardworking, you are highest capita income, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are least problem from the law and order point of view, and you ask for nothing. A time has come for us to demand and assert that this can't happen like this. They can't be taking India for granted. You enjoy the goods and then you curse us for everything else. That will not, that we need to fight for that kind of a thing. So I totally am with you on this matter, that we have to fight our battle, our way. Our goodness must not be abandoned at all. I'm saying that, right, what you mentioned about the perception battle. The perception battle, Mr. Modi also played the perception game. He had to play that game in his first term, which is what he's reaping the rewards of today. So the point is that we also have to become, my favorite phrase is, actively engaged in the process in America. Because what must not happen is that, a Trevor Noah on Comedy Central makes fool of India, or some guy on late night something on HBO. He's so irritating. I don't watch his show, but he did a devilish show on HBO, denigrating India and Indians and the farmers thing and everything so badly that the people who were watching were clapping. I'm talking about the fact that the Aam Janta on the street must not look at us with suspicion, but they must look at us with awe. Oh my God, those guys can't be this wrong. Let's find out more. And to that end, we have to do our own public relations positive campaign on this. That's not us. That's these people who are doing it. So whether it's a Rihanna, whether it's a Greta, or it's Meena Harris. Meena Harris commented that I'm a Hindu. She told somebody on tweet, I'm a Hindu, cool it. I can't imagine myself, my effigy being burnt in India. And the State Department and some people have told the State Department that her social media campaigns will hurt Indo-US relationship. So Vice President Kamala Harris, who is a Christian and a black, has an Indian root, but her niece says that she is a Hindu despite being a Harris. So I'm totally unsure about these kind of things. I'm almost tempted to tweet to her that if you are a Hindu, then you know the word karma. I told her that make sure that your karma don't hurt your aunt, your favorite aunt who has made you globally famous. So the point of the matter is that we have to bring about a campaign in a manner that sometime you have to remember that if somebody is trying to cut your throat, at that time, giving him a garland and a champagne or a lassi is not going to solve the problem. The barbarian is at the gate. So we have to address the barbarian at the gate as well with Purusharth. Mahabharata and Ramayana teach us that element. Ram and Krishna were part of a big war, a dharma war. So for us, we must treat this as a dharma war. And for us, we are dharma rakshati rakshita. We have to get into the, though we are non-violent people, but when it comes to dharma, we will rise. And this is the time for us to rise in righteousness, our agenda, our way to make this happen. Your thoughts?
Look, there's no question that the behavior towards India and Hindus has been very abusive, and it's been very bad behavior. And it's unwarranted, it's unjustified. And in many cases, I won't name anybody, the Pied Pipers are basically maggots.
I call them paid pipers.
Paid Pipers, they're basically like maggots feeding off the fault lines of society. Again, the fact is that if you're wrong, then you have to address it. You have to address it with your weapons and your values. Never sink to their lies, never sink to their gutter, never sink to their violence, and keep adding value to the society and community that you're a part of, as opposed to being a parasite.
Right.
So we will prevail. I have no lack of confidence. We are winners in every aspect of our life. They have been losers in every aspect of their life. Now, the only thing left is the political arena, and I'm confident that we will prevail there also. We excel in knowledge, we excel in our economic resources, we excel in now our military resources. We just have to build our political capital, and once we set our mind to it, we'll excel there also. I'm not
the last question of the day, and I would put it this way, that I always believe in responding rather than reacting. Yes. And reacting is obviously shooting off the hip, and but responding is important, because responding is responding with the preparedness, being aware of the consequences of an action, being ready for an eventuality. Then you have an answer. And we know that criminals and antisocial elements and the villains thrive on the compassion of human beings. They thrive on the compassion of the societies and the laws that exist. They take advantage of that. So therefore, a time has now come to call a spade as well. While we do our good stuff, we do not abandon our path, our righteous path, we never leave. But we have to also create a cadre of people that who are able to confront the evil, that when it addresses us in any which way it's possible. Your word on this, and then we'll close the show today.
Yeah, my word is very simple. A strong India and 1.3 billion strong Indians is not just a nice to have. It is a necessity for America It is a necessity for humanity. In this world where now societies like as small as North Korea are armed with lethal technologies, Pakistan is armed with lethal technologies. Both Pakistan and North Korea are unbalanced societies. India is a remarkable society and nation. It has diversity, it has culture, it has peace, it has right values, it is inclusive, it is tolerant. It is the model country and model society. America and Americans should have a very vested interest in a strong India and 1.3 billion strong Indians. I think we will get them there. When you look at the trends over the last 10 years, most Americans are realizing that Henry Kissinger made a fatal mistake when he went to Pakistan, and then from Pakistan he went to China. That journey will turn out to be the most significant journey after the Mayflower journey, but unfortunately with terrible, terrible consequences from an American point of view.
Right.
So now begins the passageway to India. America has started on this journey kind of like around 10 years, 12 years ago. It is accelerating. But as you correctly pointed out, we have to rise to that occasion. We have to rise to that responsibility. We have to play that role. We can't sell out. We can't suddenly pretend to be somebody else. We have to have confidence in what it is to be Indian. We have to be confident in what we stand for, and we have to be responsive if somebody seeks to weaken us, because what we stand for is good for humanity. And
I
that's my
totally
message.
agree with you. I've always believed that not to use the phrase too big to fail, which was used in the mortgage crisis for the banks to be bailed out. But I believe India is too big to be ignored by America and cannot be taken for granted. To that end, President Biden, when he spoke with Mr. Modi, he made the statement that we will deal with the rules of law in international order. We will be rule-based solutions, and that's good, because if it is rule-based, then you can't discriminate. If you are going to attack India with human rights accusations, then you have to also make the same rules for countries that are openly violating human rights, and you are in bed with you for a variety of reasons. So you can't have strange bedfellows and tell me to be pious and pure. At the same time, I would also say that India has become is a very rising power. Political power comes from economic strength, which is what Mr. Modi is trying to build India into, an economic giant. And I think the frustration with China is complete. I think regardless of whatever China will throw about as a crumbs, but that system is in a collapse. It's in a spin of its own. And I have a feeling that, that China, businesses will not go back to China, regardless of what Apple and Facebook may try. Those are different kind of scenarios, but the manufacturing that was living in China is not going to happen. There will be significant shift will happen. And I think the whole world is aware of China now. They know that that is the true evil. How Biden will play that, I do not know. He said he had a 2-hour call with President Xi. I don't know what they were talking about for 2 hours, but it's a good thing. I hope he has told China, mind your business because we can't help you more. Or he's going to succumb to that. We do not know, but they both need each other to bring about some kind of a semblance. Geopolitically speaking, you refer to China pulling back from Indian borders. The strategic game plan, it appears that China is trying to make sure to get Taiwan, and then they will do a barter trade with India in this side. So there is a significant geopolitical gamesmanship going on. And as I said, Mr. Modi gave President Xi every opportunity to be friends. Today, nobody can blame Modi that he did not give President Xi any chance. Today, President Xi stands exposed as a liar, as a conniving president who abused India's hospitality. So boundary lines will be drawn, Lakshman Rekha will be established, and I sincerely hope and pray that it bodes well to all of us. And we as community, and as a powerful community as Indians we have to become politically engaged and active. We can't be sitting back just writing checks for political donations to congressmen, eligible senators, and whatever else comes our way. We have to kind of make sure that you do what you want to do with others, not at my expense. And that's the message that we must convey to them. You want my check? I don't want you to do anything that hurts my interest, period. With these words, as always, a great conversation always has to come to an end. It is always fun to have you over and talk about issues which we are very passionate about. Viewers, thank you for being with us. Have a great weekend and have a great week ahead. See you next week again. Thank you, Rakeshji, very much.
Thank you, Vibhuti. Here's the good news. There's no confusion. February 14th is Valentine's Day. That's a good day. Let's all celebrate that, including the New York State legislators.
Thank you.